Hi, I'm Megan Finnerty, and I'm the founder and director of the Storytellers Project and the Storytellers Brand Studio, and I am so excited to be hanging out with you right now on Facebook. Hopefully, if you're tuning into this, you've been to a Storytellers night, or you're curious about our work, and you feel like you have a story inside of yourself to share. And we are so excited about that, because we need more storytellers at all of our nights across the country. We're only doing this for about a half an hour, and so we have a lot to get through, and I'm going to get right into it. The Storytellers Project is part of the USA Today network, where in 22 cities we bring true first-person stories to life on stage in front of people's neighbors. And our shows range in size from quite intimate, maybe 150 people, to in places like Fort Collins or Cincinnati, to really big shows in Phoenix and in Des Moines. In Des Moines, they're at a beautiful historic theater of 1,300 people. So your experience will vary no matter where you are, but the one thing that's consistent is that you are going to be able to work with everyday journalists in all of our newsrooms to develop an amazing story that speaks to who you are and what you have in your heart to share with the community. So if you're tuning in again now, this is to help you figure out, how should you do it? Do you want to do it? Maybe you've been thinking about it. Maybe it's been a New Year's resolution you've just been putting off. We want to help you get there. So you just saw we pulled up our mission. We can totally go back to that. Sorry. We pulled up how it works, but for a second I'm going to talk about our mission. The reason we're doing this is because at the USA Today Network, our job is to serve and reflect our communities while developing empathy among those community members. And a lot of times you may think like, oh, newsrooms are places where people just like uncover corruption, or they write about politics, or they cover car crashes and crime. And that's true. But I never did that kind of journalism. I actually always worked in features, and my job was to make sure that we were covering the culture of the community. I loved writing about nightlife and events, and when I was an editor, we covered everything from open mic nights to big, huge concerts, to parades, to big holidays, to restaurant openings, everything in between, because we were focused on serving and reflecting our community in the way that it spent its leisure time. We wanted people to know what made their town so special and interesting, and Storytellers is a really big part of that. It's a chance for you to directly connect to the people in your community while literally talking about your own feelings on stage. We also focus on diversity and inclusion and representation. So I'm going to talk about that a tiny bit. Maybe you're the kind of person who's like, I don't know if I have anything worth talking about, or I don't know if anyone wants to hear from me because of some idea you have. Well, in all of our communities, we work really hard to make sure that we know exactly who's in the community versus who's on stage, because we have a mandate as part of our journalistic mission to make sure that we are definitely representing the broader groups, but also hearing from the minority groups, and by every measurement I use that word, who make our community so singular. So we keep track of this. We also have like real outreach and many, many steps to ensure that when you interact with our newsrooms, you feel like we really want to hear from you, because it's true, we really do. We've made huge strides on this as well. It's not lip service. I'm based in Phoenix, where I started the project in 2011, and I'm not going to lie. When we started out, I literally just like begged everyone I knew to like get on stage and talk about themselves for a second, and we coached them, but mostly they were doing me a pretty big favor. And so many of these people were like my actual friends and colleagues. It was kind of a small circle. And at that very first night, say there were about 60 people in the audience. Well, now in Phoenix, 8 years on, we just celebrated our anniversary. There were more than 700 people in the audience, and the diversity and range of storytellers is infinitely larger than my personal Rolodex. And that's what we do in every single city. So if you're wondering, like, am I the kind of person who has a story to share, or do they want to hear from me? I'm telling you, like, actually, yes. We use census data. We use our like everyday news judgment. We also look at changes in demographics that are recently like making news or changing the nature of our communities to figure out all these ways that we should have more diverse and inclusive voices on stage. And what that ends up looking like, for example, in my home community, is we found out that 20% of our community are actually foreign born. So they're immigrants, or whatever you want to call this group of people, but they were not born here and now they live in our community. 20% is 1 out of 5 storytellers. So we realized, like, wow, that's something in Phoenix we really need to pay more attention to as we solicit and interact with storytellers. But in other communities, I think in Louisville, for example, we looked up their census data, and we found that like 13% of their community lives at the poverty line. And so we talked about like, well, what can we do there to make sure more people with different economic experiences are coming up on stages in that community, so that we're always reflecting the fullness of the community. So we don't just use these words like buzzwords to talk about race or country of origin or LGBT status. We're really trying to look at this holistically. And so if you think you might have a story to tell, but you're not totally sure, the Storytellers Project, I promise you, like, wants to hear from you. You might be thinking though, like, okay, you're here and you do this. Yes, you want to hear from me, and you've got some ways to make yourselves, like, you know, committed to fighting colonialism and the patriarchy and white supremacy. Okay, fine. But like, does it work? What am I going to do? I'm going to get up there and talk about my feelings for all this time, and then what happens? So yeah, let's talk about that. When we think about whether or not storytelling works, I can tell you that the reason this massive media organization has invested in the Storytellers Project over the last several years is because it actually connects communities. We know that when you care enough to talk and an audience cares enough to listen, something singular changes in that community. People are more willing to invest emotionally and financially in their towns when they know their neighbors. And this is probably not really hard to imagine when you think about it logically, but I know we can feel increasingly disconnected. When I first started the project, people were like, oh, is there something about Phoenix? It's just really connected. And that's a little bit of a joke. If you've ever been here, there are 22 cities that make up the valley, and it takes like 2 hours to drive from end to end and probably 2 hours to drive from top to bottom. And we are obsessed with our cars, and we stay inside all the time because it's very, very hot. It's like 107 today. So we're not like some town where everybody's like walking past each other and getting to know each other constantly on the street in this sort of like New York, Chicago, LA kind of way. No, instead, we have to choose to seek out community. And I think you'll find if you participate in Storytellers, that's the audience and the cohort of tellers you'll find. A bunch of people who feel like they have something inside their hearts to give in service of a community that wants to receive it. So when we ask, does storytelling work? I can tell you that our first night in Phoenix only had a few people, and now we routinely have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. We started out in one city, and now we're growing into, we're in 22 with plans to expand into even more. You've probably heard of the Moth. Maybe your town has a bunch of other storytelling nights. We know it makes a difference in our communities, which is why we're so passionate about it. So with that, I'm going to pivot, and we want to tell you, where are we? You might already be Googling this. You might be pulling up our website. So I'm going to read this list. It's alphabetical. Stay with me, though. Okay, so if we're not in your town yet, you can also message us in the chat and we'll try to like get there. So we're going to watch it here. It's going to pull up, and it's Asbury Park. It's the Asbury Park, New Jersey is at the Asbury Park Press. In Rochester, we're at the New York, Rochester, New York, sorry, there's lots of Rochesters. At the Democratic Chronicle. Cincinnati, we're at the Inquirer. In Des Moines, Iowa, at the Des Moines Register. Fort Collins, Colorado, at the Coloradoan. We're in Fort Myers at the Fort Myers News Press, and they actually partner with the Naples Daily News down in Naples because they're so close. In Greenville, South Carolina, they're at the Greenville News. In Indianapolis, at the Indy Star. Lafayette, Louisiana, at the Daily Advertiser. I don't want to mistake anything. In Lansing, we're at the Lansing State Journal in Michigan. We're at the Louisville, Kentucky Courier Journal. We're in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Tennessean. We're obviously here in Phoenix at the Arizona Republic. We are in Reno, Nevada, up at the top of the state at the Reno Gazette Journal. In Salem, Oregon, at the Statesman Journal. Tallahassee, Florida, at the Tallahassee Democrat. Palm Springs, California, at the Desert Sun, and kind of that whole valley. So if you live in Coachella or Indio, we're there. Ventura, California, at the Ventura County Star. And last not least, because I swear to God they sell out every single show, we're in York, Pennsylvania, at the York Daily Record. So now you have a lot of places to see. Are you anywhere near any of those sites? Can you come pitch a story and hang out with us? So we'd love for you to be involved, and those coaches in those communities will actually reach out to you if you leave a note on our Facebook account. So are you guys ready? We're going to talk about some key ideas. So our big key ideas for recruitment. Sorry, there we go. I was like, we're pulling something up real quick. So you might be wondering, like, how does this not be like a total disaster? How do I not get up in front of strangers and then regret it or say something I shouldn't have said? Well, yeah, that is an important question if you're It's a really important question to ask. So number one, you have to be in alignment with your identities. And most of us have three identities. It's who we are at work, it's who we are with our family, and it's who we are in our community. And so we coach our story coaches to listen for you, to listen to whether or not you say anything that they think like sounds a little awkward. And typically, we know that there are very few people who are unself-aware. But everyone has blind spots with some story. I know that I even tried to tell us a story about my twin sister once, and something just didn't work. And one of my coaches was just like, I don't think you seem like you think that's that funny. And I was remembering something that happened in our childhood. Now, realistically, I love my sister. We get along super well. But, I don't know, maybe I was remembering something that I wasn't over yet, or I thought it was funny, but clearly my face made it seem otherwise. And so they are really self-aware, and they help you realize, like, are you coming across the way you think you want to be coming across? That's really helpful. Number two, our stories must not damage anyone else's reputation. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, you work at a paper. All you guys do all the time is blah, blah. Yeah, we tell the truth about bad things and bad people that happen. That's our job. But on our storytelling stages, the stories are never really right to know or need to know. Like a right to know story is like a story about a public official. A need to know story is like there's a flood coming. These stories are instead want to know, so they're just entertainment. And so we work really hard to make sure that all of our storytellers contextualize the behavior of others in their stories. We don't want anybody getting up on stage and committing a character assassination or accidentally getting themselves uninvited from dinner or like side-eye at the office. We know that your reputation is important to you, and the reputation of the people in your life is important to them. And you don't want to run afoul of that. So we listen for that as well. And lastly, number three, we keep things mostly PG-13, which is just to say you can curse, you can be yourself, you can use slang and jargon and fancy words. But we don't want you like using the F word because it's tacky. I would know. I use it in my daily life. But we don't want you using super bad language. But more than anything, we don't want you being like shocking or salacious. And the reason we do that is because that makes people's hearts close up. And in storytelling live on stage, you want people's hearts to stay open. But those are really our biggest rules. So we work really hard to keep you safe and keep our audience safe by ensuring that you know those rules and that we all follow them. And you don't have to figure it out on your own. Again, you have professional coaches who help you figure this stuff out. Now, I've been doing a ton of talking. We are now going to pivot, and we're going to listen to three people who told their stories on recent nights in different cities across the country. This part is not live because we had a little bit of a hard time coordinating everyone's schedules, but you are going to hear what they have to say. It's totally real and authentic, and like I didn't get to edit this personally. So with that, take it away, Megan. The first storyteller we're going to speak with is Almeri Almador from Oxnard, California. I'm so excited you were willing to talk with us today. Talk to me about how you first got involved with the project.
A friend of mine, Monique Gonzalez, who's also a storyteller, she actually sent me the link to this event because I had never heard about it before, and so she thought that I should sign up, and I did.
So I know you'd never done anything like this before. What did you think about the process from like recruiting to coaching to finally telling?
I thought it was very easy, and I also felt very comfortable. Thankfully, all the editors were just all very welcoming and very, encouraging, in my story and telling my story. And even the people that I shared the stage with were just amazing as well.
I know this is kind of a personal question, but did you feel like you had any revelations or catharsis or like a big idea when you were going through the coaching or telling process?
I mean, that I could get used to this, telling my story and just my experiences that I have in life. So I really liked it. And I also really liked hearing other people's, stories from the community that, I probably would have never interacted with before.
Almeri, thank you so much for telling us about your experience. I'm really excited to bring up our next storyteller, Cherie Clark. She is from Des Moines, Iowa, and she told her story in June of 2019. Cherie, tell us about your theme.
The theme was On Second Thought, which was about things you rethought.
Can you talk a little bit about the coaching process and what you found helpful?
Oh, the coaching process was amazing and awesome. When I first was thinking about doing this, I wasn't really sure I even had a story to tell that anybody else would want to hear. And working through the process was really remarkable because doing it really helped me process the story itself, and it also helped me understand the ebb and flow. I got really valuable feedback, and I got some good pointers about how to keep the audience engaged and how to actually land the plane.
Cherie, is there any chance you remember what the coaches asked you or how they tried to draw the story out?
The thing that I remember most was, and which really seems kind of intuitive, but it's be yourself. And don't worry about making the point so profoundly that the audience gets tied up in your thought process. So it's really being authentic and telling your own story. The good news is that makes it that much easier.
Were you receptive to all of their feedback and questions, or did it ever feel a little awkward?
I was so receptive to the suggestions that I don't think that there was one that I didn't take. And even in the beginning, when I was a little bit reluctant, like there might be something that was uttered to me and I'd think, well, I'm not sure about that. And then the more I reflected on it, the more I could see I was so close to the story that I couldn't zoom out and see what really it was that my point was even going to be.
So now that you've done it, do you have any advice for our future tellers?
Oh, the biggest advice I can give is just do it. You're probably going to have a moment of hesitation. After you say yes, you're going to say, what the hell did I just do? But my advice to you is forge forward. Everybody gets nervous. Everybody has second thoughts and doubts and thinks they're not going to be good enough. And then when the night finally rolls around, get there early so that you can be calm and relaxed and you're not scurrying around looking for a parking place. Wear comfortable shoes, especially women. You don't want to be tottering on your heels, and just be relaxed, be you. Realize that everybody in the audience, and I've been an audience member for a long time, everybody in the audience wants you to succeed. They're all there cheering you on, and when you have that moment, and you may, where you think you've forgotten, you'll get it back, and everybody there is saying, yay, you did this.
Cherie, thank you so much for sharing your insights. Our next storyteller is JJ Sheffer from York, Pennsylvania. She recently shared there, and JJ, we're happy to have you. My first question is, was there anything surprising or unexpected about your involvement with Storytellers? And also, do you feel like you really understood the process before you got involved?
I thought the process was really clearly communicated. I also found that the story that I went into it with turned out to be completely different from the story I told after I went through the coaching process. So what I told at the event was very different from what I thought I would share.
So York is a little bit of a smaller community, and storytelling in the way that we practice it is somewhat new to that area. Can you talk a little bit about the reception you and the other storytellers got on that night from the audience?
It's a very encouraging and supportive audience. They're very receptive, and I had a lot of people coming up to me afterwards to sort of share how they related to it, what was similar about their own story. Or in some cases, what was different about their own experience.
So JJ, I've been doing this for years. I feel like I've asked all my friends, all my coworkers, like people I see at the grocery store, I ask people all the time to tell stories. But what's your advice about people if they're on the fence or they're not sure that they have a story or they're the right person to do it? What would you tell people who are just barely considering it?
I say absolutely do it. Stories are the way we connect with each other and find our sense of community. Uncover commonalities and differences and learn how to relate to each other. So absolutely do it.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much to our storytellers. Wasn't that fun? Also, I have a look. I obviously am going with it this summer with the chambray. So we're so appreciative that our 3 previous storytellers wanted to share their stories with us, but now we want to show you a show and help you get a little bit more of a sense of what you can expect live there. So we're going to take it to our sizzle reel.
We didn't need to be afraid of the future if we stood by each other.
I want to live, and I realized I was killing myself super slowly.
I found my peace in telling my story, and I'm going to continue doing that.
All the walls that I had carefully built around my family's traditions were about to come tumbling down.
They woke up a lot of emotions, sadness, I almost cried at one point. I laughed a lot.
There wasn't a whole lot of diversity out there. Being deaf, gay, fat, and Mexican, I was the diversity there.
You can be better. and you can do more.
Maybe my body was telling me something by literally shutting down.
Storytellers' audiences are amazing.
What kind of an a-hole doesn't like Santa Claus?
I'm so happy. This is the greatest day of my life.
I love you. What?
She's the alpha of the two of us, so just let that settle.
This brought someone's story into my life and made me feel that much better.
It kind of makes me think about myself and my own experiences.
You have to be willing to give up everything, to not cut corners.
I love you. Marry me?
I love watching that sizzle reel because it makes me look at all those people, and I'm so grateful every one of those people on stage chose to share a little part of their hearts with their communities live on stage. And when you see them all together in the sizzle reel, my heart just is so full. So listen, whether you are new to town and you're looking to like figure the place out and get to know new people, or maybe you've been in your community for a million years, you've seen it all, you've done it all, you've been around all of the blocks, you are a person we need to hear from. I'm going to leave you with this thought because we're wrapping up. We've been on the internet for more than a minute, so I want to leave you with this big idea, which is, as journalists, some part of our life, we are supposed to know all the right people to call in our communities to figure out the right answers to the most important questions so that we can help you live your lives better. But with the Storytellers Project, all of the journalists in the participating communities approach this work with enormous humility. We know we don't know all the best stories in our towns. We don't know all the greatest storytellers or the most important things that the people in our communities need to hear. We are humble, and we know we need your help to do this work. And so if you would go to storytellersproject.com/tell, or just click on the little tell button. There's an actual form there, and this form goes to real people like me. Like, it really goes into the inbox of real humans. It is not a scammy, weird form. And then we don't put you in some kind of weird flow and email you stuff later. We just want you to tell us your story. And you don't have to be a great writer. In fact, we keep it short so that you don't feel pressure to be a great writer. We just need you to fill it out enough so that we can get a sense for you, and then we contact you. It's super easy. We give you 6 to 8 weeks to work on your stories. You have plenty of time to figure it out. The whole coaching process, as you heard from our storytellers, is really rigorous, it's really thorough, and it's all designed to help you. So, thanks for tuning in. I really hope that you'll consider pitching your story and participating in your community, because like we said at the beginning, when you care enough to share your story and your neighbors care enough to listen, something truly changes in your town. People care enough to invest financially and emotionally, and that's how community connecting really happens. So thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us. If nothing else, you can just leave us a note and we'll try to make sure that you get tickets to your next show, or we can interact with you and let you know more about how to pitch. We're here to chat. We're here to let you know how to tell a story or buy a ticket. Thanks so much.